Hey, what is going on, you mud munchin' Murkrow? So I'm doing something a little bit different in today's video that I haven't done before, but I plan to do in future videos, and that is just taking a look at and breaking down top 8 lists from recent major tournaments. And today, going to be looking at the top 8 lists from Liverpool, talk about the decks, the lists, what I liked, what I maybe didn't like, and why they played the cards they did, and what kind of functions they have in certain matchups, so that way you guys can take that information, play some of these decks, and be more equipped with, how to rock them. We're not going to be doing these in order of first to second to third to fourth to fifth to sixth to seventh to eighth. Instead, I'm going to do them kind of in categories of the deck, so I can kind of show the differences of the decks, or the differences of lists of the same archetype that were played in top 8. I'm going to be starting off with Stefan's Goodra build, which is quite a bit different than any build of Goodra that I've seen recently as far as Lost Zone Goodra goes. So, of course, it's still a Lost Zone build. Got the Comfies, got the Goodra lineup. It does have 3 Goodra V, which most lists have been rocking 2 Goodra V, which is nice because it decreases your chance of starting Goodra. But you have so many switch cards in the deck that doesn't hurt you too much to open the Goodra, of course. 1 Cramorant. Most lists have been rocking the 2. The Luminian V in here as well, which not a lot of people rock either. The Luminian V, very good at helping you find the chorus on your first chorus turn and getting you going, and of course finding Roxanne in the late game as well. There's also 2 Roxanne in here, which I don't think I've ever seen a Goodra list playing 2 Roxanne. I like the one of Roxanne myself. That was my list was playing. I'm definitely going to pick up Stefan's list and try this thing out though, because I really like the way it's built. Super straightforward, super clean. The Goon in here as well, another card that you don't see too often in these Goodra decks, but it does help the Goodra V-Star get up to like the numbers like 210 to help KO stuff like the Stoutland, or you can get up to like 220 to like turn 1 or turn 2 1-hit KO like a Lugia V or something like that. So there's a decent amount of math that the Zigzagoon helps out. So I do like the Zigzagoon addition in here as well. Another thing, like I said, don't really see in too many other the Lost Zone Goodra decks. Besides that, like I said, super straightforward. The big card, or another big card that's not in here, that's in a lot of other Goodra builds. One is Marnie. It's not a huge card to not see here. You have more consistency with the Luminian to find the early choruses, and there's double Roxanne in here, so you have, multiple ways to still disrupt your opponent towards the late game. The early / mid game consistency of Marnie might hurt a little bit, but I think the Luminian probably makes up for that quite a bit. Also, Raihan in here for a little bit of extra energy acceleration to probably your backup Goodra when you need that. But there's no Parasols in here. Most Goodra decks, pretty much every Goodra V-Star deck that I've seen so far has been rocking the double Parasol tool card, and there's 0 in this deck. So Stefan tested the Lugia matchup enough and found that the Parasols that probably prevent the Yveltal from getting the 1-hit on the Goodra V-Star wasn't worth the inclusion of them. Still has the triple Temple of Sinnoh, which is a good deterrent from the Yveltal, because you put the Temple of Sinnoh in play, attack with your Goodra. They not only need to get the Yveltal set up on that turn, but also get rid of your Temple of Sinnoh to actually be able to use it to take a 1-hit KO on your Goodra. So Temple of Sinnohs, I guess Stefan decided, were enough, and they did get second place at the tournament. So they probably faced quite a few Lugias on their route there, and Temple of Sinnoh looks like it was enough to at least get to second place. And they didn't end up losing to a Lugia in the finals. They lost to a Mew, and we'll be looking at that list in a little bit here. But yeah, was enough. This other list, like I said, we're going to kind of do these in pairs, is the other Goodra list piloted by Vinny that also placed top 8. Now, this is a little bit more standard to what we've been seeing from Goodra builds, the Battle VIP Passes. Oh, that's another card that Stefan did not include in their build. No Battle VIP Pass. So playing cards that you can more consistently use throughout a game, the 4 Quick Ball, the 4 Capture Energy to find the basic Pokemon, but can't have quite as explosive of starts as you can have with the Battle VIP Passes that we saw Vinny play, and the player who I initially saw kind of bringing a Goodra to light was Israel Sosa, and Israel Sosa's build looked very similar to this build here, piloted by Vinny. The 2-3 Goodra line, the Marnies, the Battle VIP Passes, the double Cram, the 2 Parasol. This is all pretty standard for Goodra builds as of late, so Stefan really innovated pretty heavily on the build. Is it definitely better than the Battle VIP Pass build? I'm not sure yet. I haven't tried out the no Battle VIP Pass build from Stefan yet. I definitely plan on playing with it on the stream coming up though, and I'll have a better, more informed opinion then. I do know when I did play the Battle VIP Pass build of Goodra, it felt okay when the deck set up, but it felt pretty shaky initially setting up, which I'm sure the inclusion of like the Luminian and the heavy quick ball count to find it could definitely make a big difference in that. And the overall feel of the deck with no Battle VIP Pass and more ways to find basic Pokemon throughout the game from quick balls and heavier capture energy count could also make a difference as well. So I'm excited to try out Stefan's build with the differences from what we've normally been seeing. But yeah, 2 Goodras in the top 8. This one is the more go-to build with the Battle VIP Pass. Vinny ended up in the top 8. With this one, yeah, more classic build of what people have been playing. Battle VIP passes, big parasol, and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and let's move on to Sander's crazy control deck. Sander does it again, another top 8, but only a top 8 once again. Sander struggling to push past that. Of course, the time rules in top 8 make it a little bit hard for control decks to kind of get dubs once they get there. But yeah, Sander coming at us again with another crazy build. So the core of the build is the Snorlax engine plus the Yveltal with the Cry of Destruction to beat decks like Lugia, most popular deck in the format by quite a bit, and Mew. Snorlax is the draw engine. And then alongside that, we've got the Flying Pikachu VMAX. That's right, there's a Flying Pikachu VMAX in here that you can combo with a big Parasol to basically auto-win the Reggie matchup and the Lost Box matchup. And you try and get down to like a lone Flying Pikachu in play, so that way they can't use any kind of escape rope shenanigans. Get down to that lone Flying Pikachu VMAX, get the Parasol on it, start using that Max Balloon, and if you got the Parasol on it while attacking with Max Balloon, while there's nothing on your bench that your opponent can escape rope around or boss around or gust around, the Flying Pikachu VMAX can't be damaged, and you'll eventually draw 6 prize cards. There's a couple different ways you can set it up. You can put it in play initially just by benching the Flying Pikachu VMAX, or you can Thornton into it from your discard pile by building up energy on one of your Pokemon in play. The main one to build up in the Lost Box matchup is the Unfazed Fat Snorlax. It's got the ability that says it can't be affected by effects of attacks. So if you have that for Snorlax on your bench, the main attacker in this matchup for the Lost Box deck is actually Sableye, because you can spread a bunch of damage in play and not take knockouts, and then take all of your knockouts in the same turn at once, meaning that you don't ever give your opponent a possibility of getting down to a lone Flying Pikachu. Now, there are scoop up nets in this deck, so you can possibly force it yourself as the control player, but it can be pretty difficult to pull that off. But because you have the Unfazed Fat Snorlax, there's always going to be a Pokemon in play that Sableye can't touch and can't knock out, which is a pretty big deal. So you can build up energy on this Snorlax, get the Flying Pikachu V in the discard pile through Quick Ball. I think that's the only way in here to get that in the discard pile. The Quick Ball, or if you get lucky with the one of Trekking Shoes, and you can Thornton the Flying Pikachu V onto the Thornton out the Snorlax into the Flying Pikachu, evolve to the Pikachu VMAX, and then if you don't have all the energy you need yet, you attach for turn, get the Parasol on it, and then you're swinging with the Flying Pikachu VMAX and starting to draw prize cards. And the way you can kind of set this up pretty easily up against Lost Zone decks is the Starly with the Keen Eye attack that allows you to search your deck for any 2 cards for 2 colorless energy. And there's plenty of doubles energy in the deck, 4 double turbo, 3 twin energy. And also, if you Bird Keepered that turn, the Sky Circus ability from the Starly allows you to attack for free. That's not essential. Don't really need to do that. You got plenty of double energy, but there is a Bird Keeper in this list, so you can make that happen as well and attack for free. One thing I will mention about this list, after the tournament, Sander tweeted out and had a discussion thread on their Twitter and said that they actually submitted the wrong list for the tournament. They updated a new list on Arcanine Labs, but forgot to submit it for the tournament, and they would have played -1 Trekking Shoes and -1 Crushing Hammer for a 2nd Sydney, and I'm forgetting the other card. Oh, a 4th Speed Lightning Energy. So if you're looking to play this control build from Sander, cut the Trekking Shoes, cut the Crushing Hammer, and go with the Sydney and the 4th Speed Lightning. That is the list that they would have played at the tournament if they could have, and it sounds like they would still have made those changes even post-tournament after they did get top 8. So they got top 8 with the wrong list, but it sounds like they still would have preferred no Crushing Hammer, no Trekking Shoes for the 2nd Sydney, which is super strong up against the Mew and Lugia matchups, and a 4th Speed Lightning Energy. Now, there's a couple cards in here I'm actually not too sure of how valuable they are in certain situations. I haven't played a whole ton with Sander's control decks as of late. So the Echoing Horn and the Yell Horn, I don't have too much info on as to when they're good. The Yell Horn can be good up against Lugia, and so can the Echoing Horn for trapping up some random Pokemon. The Yell Horn can be, once you have like Galarmine stuck in play or something stuck in the active that maybe they can attack with, you can make it harder for them to actually pull off knockouts by Yell Horning and confusing it, making them not only have to get the energy on the Pokemon that you've just trapped in the active, but they also have to flip and have a 50% chance of not being able to pull off that attack that turn, and then you being able to set up around that from there. Another thing Sander mentioned is that the Unfazed Fat Snorlax is great to also KO your opponent's potential Unfazed Fat Snorlax that some people do play in the Lugia deck, because Unfazed Fat says you can't remove or prevents all effects of attack, so that means you can't actually use Yveltal to remove the energy from the Unfazed Fat Snorlax potentially in a Lugia deck, so they can have that up there attacking over and over again, and you actually can't run them out of energy, which is the game plan up against the Lugia deck, is to run the Lugia deck out of energy with Yveltal and Sydney. And I guess if you have the one of Crushing Hammer in there, you can use that as well. And yeah, it's just a really good disruption / control deck. Sanders done it once again. So if you're a big fan of these type of decks, definitely recommend you trying it out. I'm going to be trying it out myself probably at some point, and I'm excited to see how it feels and how it runs. From what I saw of it on stream, it looked like it was pretty good, and excuse me, functioned pretty well. Also, I guess another thing I'd mention here, there's the Radiant Greninja. This is similar to, like I said, Sanders LAIC build. No Radiant Gardevoir. The Radiant Gardevoir was really nice because it prevented Luminion and Lugia decks from KOing Yveltals. But now they got the Greninja in here, a little bit more draw power. Still have some Capes of Toughness in here to boost the HP of the Yveltal, so that way Luminion can't take a one-hit KO on them. So you don't have the Gardevoir for the guaranteed protection, but they usually play like one Vacuum and Lugia deck. So the Cape of Toughnesses are still pretty good at slowing down Luminions from taking knockouts. And you can prevent Luminion from doing damage in general to your board by setting up your Miltank or bossing something up off their bench to prevent the constant Luminion loop. Because most Lugia decks, pretty much all Lugia decks, play 2 Luminion now. So if they just go attack with Luminion, send up Luminion, the energy gets shuffled back to the deck, and you're never really running them out of energy with Yveltal. Sydney, of course, can still hit their energy, but if they clear their hand out of energy, every time they top deck an energy, it could just go back onto a Luminion, shuffle out Luminion into the deck, and as long as they can keep searching Luminions out of the deck, they can keep up that process forever. So Miltank to slow them down, Boss to get around it. It's pretty good. Yeah, the Greninja adds like a new level of consistency to the deck. And there's a pretty high energy count now with the speed lightnings in here, as well as the capture energy. So you have a ton of energy. You're going to be able to conceal cards away to dig through your deck to find the control pieces you're looking for. So another super sick build, like I mentioned, from Sander with a top 8 placement. Up next, we got the Mew builds. Now, this is the Mew build that actually ended up taking down the whole tournament. And this list actually is only one card different from the Mew build that got second place at San Diego Regionals not that long ago. So it is the Control Mew or Path Mew, Disruption Mew, whatever you want to call it. The Judges, the Marnie, the Roxanne, the Path to the Peak. And it does have Lost City in here now. Very good against the Lost Box matchups. And then also very good against Regis. Basically, the only win condition against Regis is to use Lost City and kind of catch out 2 of a Reggie at some point and limit your opponent's access to energy for the rest of the game. And a Collapse Stadium in here as well. The Collapse Stadium, I'm not too sure where its most powerful situations are. It's pretty good against Kyogre Lost Box to be able to discard your own damaged Pokemon, again the Kyogre matchup specifically, and I'm sure you can get value out of it in other matchups for sure. Good against Reggie as well. The Lost City is already great, but the Collapse Stadium can be good as well. Big Parasol in here to prevent the Yveltal one-hit KOs in certain situations, so super powerful for that. But yeah, pretty basic double turbo Mew build. Not too much to say about on this one, to be honest. It feels like a really strong deck right now. I was kind of underrating it up until this tournament happened, but I think I definitely need to give it a little bit more credit than I've been giving it recently. And I think Mew, double turbo Mew is definitely a pretty strong play here. Another Mew build that got top 8 that I have a lot less to say on, to be honest, because I have not played with Fusion Mew in a minute. So this is a top 8 list. And yeah, I've not played with who was this one piloted by? So Leon was the DT Mew we just looked at. This is piloted by Ryan Morehouse. Ryan Morehouse with the Fusion Mew for a top 8 finish. Yeah, I'm not going to comment too much on this. There's a lot going on in this list. So we got the Gust Effects, of course. You got Pokemon catchers in this build. There is a Parasol in this build. Still have some Lost Cities, a Judge, a Silene. No Palpad to recover the Silene, but you do have the Silene here. But like I said, I haven't played Fusion Mew in a hot minute, so I don't have too much opinion on any of this. I would say it looks good as far as Fusion Mew builds go. And if you like Fusion Mew, you haven't played in a little while, try this list out, give it a spin. Let me know what you think about Fusion Mew right now in the comment section. Yeah, I don't have too big of an opinion on Fusion Mew. I haven't played it in a while, but it did place top 8, so it can't be a terrible deck, I guess. The only lost box in the top 8 was a Rayquaza build. This build also only one card off a list that made top 8 in San Diego Regionals just a couple weeks ago. And this is one card off of Pablo Mesa's Rayquaza Lost Box. And I was a huge fan of Pablo's build. The only difference is this plays a third Escape Rope over the second Lightning Raikou. I'm not going to lie, I'm a pretty big fan of the double Raikou, but Escape Rope is a pretty powerful card in the deck as well. Pablo actually has a couple cards off of Pablo's. Pablo's list played 4 Escape Rope. This list is playing 3 Escape Rope and 2 Switch Card, with 1 more Switch card over the second Raikou. So it's a little bit different than Pablo's build, but basically the rest of the build is exactly the same. Just a switch up on the Switch cards and +1 Switch card over the second Raikou. Like I said, I'm a pretty big fan of the double Raikou. I feel like it does a lot in a lot of situations. It just makes it a lot more consistent about being able to use Raikous. There's a lot of matchups where you want to go like back-to-back Raikous, stuff like the Reggie matchup and stuff. So I'm a pretty big fan of the double Raikou. So I think I would cut back down on the Switch cards by 1. I don't know if I'd cut an Escape Rope or a Switch card, but I would definitely cut something to get that second Raikou back in the deck, because I feel like there's just too powerful and way too many situations to go without. But yeah, the only lost zone deck in the top 8, or not the only lost box deck, because the Goodra decks were lost zone decks. The last two decks we'll take a look at here are the two Lugia builds, piloted by Razz and Kim. So let's take a look at Razz's. Actually, let's take a look at Razz's first. So the cool new tech card that people were playing in their Lugia decks to find tech cards was the Irida, which allows you to search for a water Pokemon and an item card. Now, the water Pokemon isn't that big of a deal. You play Luminions and Manaphies, and finding them through your supportive return isn't that big of a deal. The important part of the Irida is that it's a card that you can search for with Luminion after you search for Luminion with Ultra Ball or Quick Ball to find your one-of-item cards in Choice Belt, Canceling Clone, and the Lost Vacuum. So you have a ton of access. This gives you a ton. This provides a ton of access to Lost Vacuum, Canceling Clone, and Choice Belt, which are very powerful item cards in Lugia, but in very niche specific situations that don't even come up every single game in every single matchup. So you don't want to play a ton of them. You're not trying to play like 4 Canceling Clone when you need it maybe 2 times in 2 rounds or 2 times throughout the whole tournament. But when you do need it, you're gonna want it. So being able to go Quick Ball for Luminion and Luminion for Irida, and then Irida. And the cool thing about Irida is you can kind of chain Luminion. So you can go like Quick Ball for Luminion for Irida, play Irida, get Luminion, get your Canceling Clone, play your Canceling Clone, and then turn off, I don't know, your opponent's Aerodactyl's ability for the turn. So super cool inclusion in the deck. We also saw players like Tord and Brian DeVries playing a Skyla, which does basically the same thing as the Irida. But the Irida, I think, is maybe a little bit better because it does allow you to like do that Luminion chain or maybe even get your Manaphy on a specific turn while still getting that important item card you need for a turn. So huge fan of the Irida. I'm just a huge fan of the Irida. I think it's super cool. And yeah, the item cards, like I said, super powerful in those niche situations, so you don't want to play a ton of them, but when you can find it so consistently because you have all these Pokemon search outs to the Luminion to get the Irida, that's just like a super sick tech, and I definitely see it being pretty popular moving forward alongside more people probably including the Canceling Clone. If you're not playing the Canceling Clone, I don't know if I'd play the Irida, but as soon as you add the Canceling Clone to the mix of these item cards that are super important, then I do like the Irida quite a bit, to be honest. And the last is another Lugia build. Still has the Canceling Clone, but definitely missed out on the memo about the Skyla/Irida inclusion. Another thing to mention about both of these builds, actually, people going down to that one of Serena. I've been seeing people go down to one of Boss sometimes. I definitely personally still like the double Boss, double Boss. So if you're going to cut down on a Gust Effect, I would definitely recommend cutting the Serena. I'm still a really, really big fan of double Boss in this deck. Really good into Lost Box matchups. And even the mirror match, I feel like there's a lot of situations where you want to be targeting down Archeops or just picking off on specific powerful tech Pokemon, the Raikou, the Yveltal, the Radiant Charizard. Like you want to go after those sometimes, even sometimes like the Dunsparce and the Man. If you want to go after, you can't do that with Serena. You can do that with Boss. And Serena is such a weak draw supporter in general in the deck that it doesn't come up too often that you actually want to be using it to draw cards. So both players went down to the one Serena to Boss. Like I said, I've been seeing some people go down to one Boss, keeping up with the two Serena. Definitely prefer it the other way around personally as well. This looks like these players agree. And yeah, Kim still has the Canceling Clones in here, but has 2 of them because once again, it's super important to find when you find it. And maybe didn't quite get all the way to thinking about the Skyla or the Irida or something like that. And the only other real big tech difference in this deck as well is they do have the Drapion, a little bit better of a Mew matchup. And if you run into a Mewtwo Union, you got a quick answer for that as well. Not personally a big fan of the Drapion. I personally wouldn't recommend playing it in Lugia right now. But yeah, another difference in the list. So yeah, that's all the top 8 lists. Like I said, I'm going to probably be doing this with most future major tournaments that come up. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like. Let me know in the comment section what you think about this type of video, and if you're excited to see me do it in the future, and other things I could possibly talk about, the lists or the players or something like that as I go through each of the decks. Is there any more information you wanted specifically on any of the decks? Should I have dived a little bit deeper? I didn't want to make this video super long, so I wasn't trying to break down everything in every list. You guys know how Mew works, you know how Lugia works. I was just going to talk about the little differences in between each of the lists, or cool new cards, or lack of cards like Stefan's list that we have seen in some lists, but we're not seeing in these lists. So let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.